Hello, my name is Tyler Anderson, and this is my interpersonal communication project for HSER 508. This is my last assignment in this class. I do have this scripted to my left here, so as you see me watch and turn my head, that's what's going on. There's not a fluffy animal or anything over there, so I'll do my best to keep on cue here. Like I said, my name is Tyler Anderson. I'm 23 years old. I'm currently a graduate student and a full-time employee of Liberty University. However, that is not the goal of my life. That is not what I want to do. I do, in fact, have a BHAG. A BHAG, as Dr. Jerry Falwell Sr. used to say, is a big, hairy, audacious goal. My big, hairy, audacious goal is to build a youth camp. But not just a youth camp that is self-financed by its own retreat center and its own conference center. And I'm not talking about a youth camp that just has kids for the summer. I'm talking about a youth camp that plugs kids in, that gets kids into discipleship programs with the local church, and in a very sense is a parachurch organization. I do plan to have probably 1,000 employees and well over 1,000 acres of land to be in charge of. So at the very least, it's $1 million or so organization that I will one day probably be heading with a business partner of mine. So needless to say, it is indeed a big, hairy, audacious goal. Now, I understand that this goal, may take some years and some millions, but it wouldn't be an audacious goal without taking all of that time. With such, I understand also that I'm going to need a lot of knowledge of communications, being able to talk to people, being able to communicate effectively with people. So I need to know myself, my faults. What do I do that would be a problem? What do I do that would cause people to perhaps turn off to my business propositions or turn off to the gospel message because of how I would present something, essentially. So I need to know these certain things. And one of the things that this class has done is really show me some of the faults and ultimately, though, some of the ways to fix those particular faults. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. To learn a little bit more about me. I'm one of 5 children, come from a very conservative family background. My mother was always the one that wore the pants in the relationship. However, my dad kind of never really got a handle on that until just a couple of years ago. So I grew up very much in a dictatorship style house. So it was very much, it was what her plans were for me. It was what she wanted me to do. I did this on this day at this time because this was the best way to do it. And there was no ifs or buts about it. People would call me probably a very resilient child because with all that pressure put on me, I was still able to create my own vision, to create my own dream. And I did so with what I want to do, which is not at all what they had intended for me. Going back to the script here, I kind of shied away from what my parents initially wanted for me, and I do have my heart set on what God wants me to do. It's interesting though, based on what my personality style is, based on what I found from how to solve the puzzle. That book kind of gave me an interesting perspective when I looked at it and I saw what my personality style was. It was kind of interesting because there were a couple of differences, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide here for that. I have an I personality style. Basically, I'm energetic, I'm optimistic, I'm definitely the life of a party at times. I'm always outgoing. I do have introverted styles and times where I just like to be by myself, but I'm very good in crowds. I'm very outspoken about things, very much like an I personality. And therefore, the interesting thing about that personality type, as I was looking at it, was they tend to be short-sighted. They tend to have a kind of day-to-day vision of what they want to do, whereas I understand that my plan is going to take some preparation. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure out how to do this, how to find the funding, the sponsorship, the friendships, the business relationships that you're going to need. And so this is years down the road, and I understand that. And so it was a little different than what the typical I personality style has. Um, I know the dreams God has for me, and I know that it may take time, and yet I will still go down that road. My personality still is definitely helpful towards reaching my goals. Obviously because I'm enthusiastic and optimistic. I understand that you have to be this way, especially when you're working with kids, especially when you're in a camp scenario. You've got to have that energy. You've got to be optimistic and know things that are going to go well, or even when things are going to go wrong, you still need to be optimistic about it for the most part. I'm good in crowds of people. This is bound to happen in a camp setting. This is bound to happen when people are addressing you, or you're having to be addressed by an audience of any kind. So being able to be good with crowds of people is also something that is very helpful and useful, of course. And I have great charisma and charm. This is something that I definitely feel God has somewhat blessed me with, being able to kind of talk, being able to go through certain situations, and being able to not necessarily talk my way out of problems, but being able to talk myself into good situations. And that's definitely something that God has blessed me with. And obviously, it's going to be something that's helpful whenever you get into a business venture like I will be doing. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide again. There are, of course, some negative personality some negatives to this personality type that I have that are obviously going to create the barriers to my goal. Obviously, with the I personality, and this actually isn't in your slide, but as I'm talking and thinking about this, you do have that idea of egocentrical, I know everything kind of, I have all the answers, and that's very true for me. And so one of the things that I, ultimately know I need to do is humble myself, not only before God, but before other people as well, knowing that I don't know everything, and I'm going to ultimately need somebody else's help. So that's one thing that that I for sure see needing to change in my life, and God has been, incrementally working through that with me. Some other things, though, would be the idea of winning conversations. This is something that I addressed throughout my reflective journals, discussion boards throughout this semester. I do this. I have done this. I need to stop doing this. When I get into conversations with people, this is what I do. I know where I want to go with the conversation. I want you to get on the same page. I want to make sure that I've now won this conversation by proving you wrong or proving myself more right. So this is something that is definitely a negative side to my personality. And then there's I can be too tactful. Now this is a way of kind of explaining my Perry Mason thing again, something that I addressed with the reflective journals. I have this way of just being a little too manipulative in the way I converse with people. Saying, hey, did you, make breakfast, when I really just want to say, hey, can you make me some breakfast? I think I need to be more blunt, and I'll address that a little bit more. But for right now, it's kind of one of those things where I will kind of go and I'll turn things, and I'll make them a little more difficult than they need to be, or a little more shrouded than they need to be. And I think, yes, there's a place for that, especially in business, but there's also a place for being very blunt to the point you just don't want to be deceptive, or deceitful rather. Obviously, because that's against God's word. So two things that I would need to kind of stop and correct to be able to reach my overall goal, being able to communicate effectively enough to have my BHAG become a reality. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Obviously, I need to know that I need to address these particular situations. And I need to have the best ability to communicate to accomplish what God has intended for my life, or what I believe at this time He has intended for me. Now, thankfully, this class has shown me these sorts of barriers, these sorts of situations, things that I do, but they're actually relatively easy to fix as I was looking at them. For instance, the first thing that I need to do, and I kind of addressed that a little bit earlier, is I need to be more blunt. I need to be someone that is straightforward, to the point, and doesn't beat around the bush at all. I'd rather bludgeon the bush to death than beat around it, if you will. Because for me, there are going to be specific needs, specific things that I have to have done, and instead of me asking for it indirectly and expecting it to be done, I need to actually just go ahead and ask for it to be done so that I don't get disappointed. Because that doesn't go well for me, and then it makes me disappointed in another person, and so it's a downward spiral from there, and that just doesn't do me any good. So being more blunt is obviously something that I need to work on, and it's a good way to fix that kind of Perry Mason attitude where you're going around and you're being manipulative. The second thing is allowing other people to have equal opinions. I need to realize that other people know a lot of stuff, more than I do. There are people that know more than me. As much as I would like to probably deny that fact, that's just the honest truth. And I need to be able to realize that. Being able to go into a conversation and know that I need to glean information from this as well as them is a huge, huge help to being able to get something done, being able to create friendships as opposed to just business relationships. And yes, you need business relationships, but friendships are ultimately what God calls us to have with people, and that's what's going to change lives. That's what's going to help this dream become a reality, and something that you just need to have as in my potential line of work, I suppose. Although I really don't want to work. I want it to be fun for me. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see what God gives me. So these are the two ways that I can see myself being able to change the way I'm looking at this and the way I have these, or the way I conduct myself with these negative personality traits and these things that I do in conversations. So I need a plan of action. You can go ahead and go to the next slide here as well. I need a plan of action. Obviously, communication is a key factor. I need to form relationships with people. Okay, this is your plan of action. How do I make this a reality? It starts with relationships. It starts with the people that you know, the people that you can come alongside with and begin to make this a reality. Begin to, what do you know? What can you do? What do you know that you can do? And beginning to ultimately see your goal become a reality by other people helping. And so forming relationships is incredibly helpful. I need to be able to do both business and friendship relationships with people. And the second thing is I need to have good communication skills to explain what I need accurately and thoroughly. Now this goes back again to what we were talking about earlier. I need to be blunt. I need to be to the point. I need to explain this is what I need to happen. This is what I expect to happen, and not just have people really doing things like I want them to do without me really explaining it to them. The third thing, I need to respect the opinions of those that may know more than I do. And this goes back to what we were just talking about. I need to know that other people have opinions as well. And the fourth thing, and finally, I can't expect to know everything. Coming at this from a humility standard, and this goes back again to the very beginning where I was talking, I need to realize that I need to humble myself before God before this is ever going to happen. I need to humble myself before other people, because it's just easier to talk to somebody that's humble about something than somebody that believes that they know everything and holds himself on such a high platform. And so these are the four things that I think that I can do right now that can make my vision, my BHAG, become just a vision and make it become into a reality for me. And so I'd just like to thank you for watching. I'd like to thank you for the class, the instruction, and the material presented. And it's been an honor and a privilege. Have a good day.